Welcome to Focus on Albany. I'm Cynthia Pooler, and I am honored again today to talk to my guest, Leon VanDyke, who is noted throughout Albany, throughout the country. Leon, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great.
Good.
And,
I like your sweater. You look real snazzy.
oh, yeah. Well, I'm wearing it just for you.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for
Sorry.
having me on.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
So, last time we spoke a little bit about when you came to Albany. What year was that?
1960, 61.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from 1961 and then towards the end of the decade, you were involved with the brothers. What year did the brothers form that coalition?
Uh, that was 1965. 1965 or 60. Yeah, it's 1965 or 66.
Was it because you formed the brothers because of the job situation for black people doing the Empire State Plaza?
Yeah, that's what got us started. Because of unemployment, because of the construction that was taking place throughout the capital, throughout the country, because you had this urban renewal
Right.
of money, and that's really we would go to Union Hall to try to find jobs.
Hmm.
Get jobs. They had this sort of shape up period in Albany where you go to Union Hall, and the Union Hall would select people to work on the Empire State Mall and the State University complex. And when
Okay.
soon they were building campuses throughout the state, it was Rockefeller's uh, uh, developing his Taj Mahal.
So,
But
so, so before the brothers were formed, and the city, I would assume, was where people were hired. Before the brothers were formed, was it exclusively employment for white people, would you say?
well, it wasn't exclusively, but the unions throughout the nation, particularly the construction unions, uh, they had their preferential treatment, so to speak, and excluded um, minorities. And this was not just in Albany. This was throughout the country,
Okay.
and blacks were limited at that time. People forgetting that when you see the changes it made, people really forget that blacks were restricted to the lowest paying jobs, subservient jobs throughout the country. We didn't have them all. I know people can't believe that at one point in this country, you didn't have malls. But the business uh, community, the business shopping was down on Pearl Street. You didn't have Colony Mall, you didn't have Cross Gates. But even when they begin to start that, they almost never hired blacks. Now you see a lot of blacks hired in these situations. So that's how the brothers started, but also as a sign of the times, Cynthia. It was, the civil rights movement with demonstrations and sit-ins about having access to public facilities, blacks denied, drinking at fountains, blacks denied, outward to certain jobs. Most unions during that time had white only clauses. Women couldn't get into certain sort of trades and professions. So it was an apartheid type system that we were running into, and the I always said the civil rights movement up until the 60s was basically a regional movement, a southern movement to
Mm-hmm.
get blacks registered to vote. By and large, in most northern cities, blacks could vote. Um, but the unions were very much exclusive, except especially the AFL-CIO. They were notorious, but most of them had white-only clauses. Um, and and it, in 1948, that the law changed that,
Mm-hmm.
but in fact, they still remain the same. So that's what we were up against during that time. I remember going up to the Union Hall up on 3rd Street in Albany, and we'd go up there to look for jobs, and we'd be overlooked, and they didn't say no blacks need to apply, but that fact was the story. So I myself, I was saying when I go to shape up, if this guy comes here, this business agent come here one more time, and he don't hire us, I'm gonna pick it. So it got to be a little joke in the union hall. Like, Leon, when you gonna pick it? So anyway, I one day I told my buddy Robert Jean Dobbs, him and I used to go up there together, 5:30 in the morning. And instead of going to pick it, I took a sign and wrote Charlie Mirabli. He was a business agent of the construction union.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Mirabli is a racist, and I figured it. And all the other business, this is in front of the labor temple, all the other business agents came out to see what was going on. And I guess they looked like, they thought that I was a guy who was walking with a sign that says, Jesus is coming back. they couldn't believe it. Then Robert Jean joined me. He took my picket sign out of the hand, and we picketed it. Well, the workers, the blacks that was there, the whites, they couldn't believe what was going on. They said, "Oh my God!" Well, anyway, we went out the next day and we picketed, and then others joined us. And so, to make the long story short, because I know we have a very short period here, by within 3 weeks, we had students, we had ministers like Nick Cardell, the Unitarian Church, Bob Lamar, a Presbyterian Church, Warren Brown, a black guy from Black Minister. They all joined the picket line. And then we went to the mall, to the Empire State Mall. We closed that down. And from that started those men that were in the picket line who joined us was the nucleus of the brothers.
Okay.
So I remember I lived across the street from Trinity Institute at that time. And Earl Thorpe, who was one of the founders of the brothers, he was saying, you guys should come and meet the neighborhood association people. And fathers, when I first met Bishop Hubbard, he was young priest then. And so anyway, we met with them, and they did a couple articles on the brothers, and we formed the brothers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, the brothers were not only instrumental in the Empire State Plaza, but you guys were working on a garbage issue in the city of Albany. What was that all about?
Well, at that time, the city did not pick up trash. Throughout the whole city, they did not pick up trash. And you had to pay to have your trash picked up.
Uh-huh.
And if you're poor, you know, that's a burden when you have to choose between your kids eating a meal or paying for trash. So, and then other people who, for one reason or another, of uncomfortable circumstances, they would drop their trash down in the inner city, you know?
Oh.
So you had that. So we we decided that we were going to protest against that. We had picketed and demonstrated. And the mayor, there was this group called Better Homes, and the mayor had his own neighborhood groups that were very supportive of him. And they were giving the mayor award at the old St. Joseph School. And they were giving him an award of how good he was. So we went to that affair with bags of trash and the bottles of roaches, and we dumped it in his feet. And one of the things that was how we got the trash in is that the Duchess or the Queen of the Netherlands were visiting Albany.
Right.
And this is 66 or 67. And we knew that, and he was taking her on a tour. And we told the people, we passed flyers out that the city was going to pick up trash on that day. So he's bringing Queen something around the show, and the streets were littered with trash because people thought that he was picking it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned that around, and from that they started picking up trash. But I like to go back just a step here because I think it's very important.
Okay.
With those construction sites, the upshot of that is that we signed the contractor's loose wire, who was a liberal type guy. He was president of the Contractors Association. The labor unions, the Capital District labor unions, all that, and the brothers, we signed agreement on understanding that they would hire so many blacks, and they would go through the brothers' office, go through the brothers to do that. That was the first agreement of understanding between minority neighborhood groups and contractors, and this was somewhat of what Nixon and other contract groups picked up. Many of the brothers also took advantage of that, of course, and took jobs because they were good paying jobs. So you can get a job as a laborers. So I was very proud of that. We also challenged them in terms of the $5 vote. And by this time, we had a whole number of supporters, and we had about lawyers who were part of the ACLU, the Larry Clever, I can't do the legal aid.
And Bishop Hubbard was involved with that.
Oh yes, he was on one of our first picket lines, and we picketed the welfare department. We signed a contract after picketing with the welfare department that before they kick anybody off, they would contact our office. We had a desk at the welfare department. But this is after a lot of struggle, a lot of picketing, a lot of demonstrating, sitting in at the welfare department, sitting in at the police department, sitting in at urban thing. We organized rent strikes and all, and this is a coalition though. This was legal aid helping us with the sign, sort of like rent strikes and and setting up a bank account that where people, instead of paying their rent, they send it to the bank. And we encourage, the landlords like Albert and Kirsch, who are huge landlords. We signed contracts with them that they asked us that before we organize a rent strike, they would say, would you please let us know and give us time to fix up the houses? And so we had all kinds of activities like that. But we had the doctors, liberal doctors like Gloria DeSole, who is a good friend. Her husband, Dan DeSole, he was a psychiatrist. He organized a list of doctors to have to have doctors examining pregnant women or women who thought they were pregnant twice a week, and they would come to the brothers. Because at that time, there was nowhere for poor women to go. They didn't have any clinics then. We forget that, and the hospitals weren't all that receptive to receiving poor women. Now that I noticed that's changed a little bit. I don't know how much, but that's changed. We had I can't think, he was a black guy. He was director of urban renewal. We even had them sign contracts that were tenants, before they would evict tenants, they'd give us a chance to work with them.
I do have a question for you, Leon.
Yeah,
When the brothers were formed, and voting rights is a big issue for you, were there any blacks on the common council?
there was one black on the county legislature. His name
Okay.
is Herbert Perkins.
Okay.
We took him to court.
Why?
Well, let me go, because once again, this is we had decided, working with guys like Vic Lord, Greta Powles, that we were going to picket the polling places to stop this practice of the machine buying votes for $5.
Uh-huh.
And that was part of their strength, of the machine. They had high voter turnout, which was a positive thing, but they paid people,
Right.
to come and to vote Democrats, because
Right.
people thought, let's include my mother, and I took the $5 votes, right? When I first came. It's a practice that is old as the Republic. But in Philadelphia, where I'm from, and other big cities, they had stopped that. Albany still was doing it, So we decided what we were going to do is to picket the polling places with signs saying, don't sell your soul for $5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was like, I remember this was because we decided that we would do it at 5:00 after a lot of the guys got off of work. And, but that afternoon, with a fellow named, who was a treasurer named Gordon Van Ness, and there was and another, they wanted to go picket that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, can we go picket? I said, yeah, sure, good. And then I had this student named Walter, and I can't think of his last name, he had a Polish name. He wanted to go with them. And I said, yeah, you can go. So they went to the polling place. We were at the office on North Pearl Street by the Palace Theater. And they went to the polling place across the street from the Palace Theater, and they picketed. And in about 30 minutes, they came back and said, Leon, he said, the police came and said, they're going to arrest us. If I said, what? So I said, let's go back down there. So I went back down there and I started picketing with was about 3, 4 of us. Robert Dean Dowes, he was my sidekick. We were like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I don't know who was the Sundance Kid, but any event, we were 2 peas in a pod. The police came, lieutenant, and he said to me, Leon, you can't pick it. I said, and we'd already consulted with lawyers and Rick Lord and ACLU that as long as you stayed outside of the, on the other side of the 100-foot sign, you could do it. So by this time I was a little known. I'd been in the paper, had a little certain notoriety. So the lieutenant said, Leon, we're going to have to arrest you. I said, well, I guess you better bring the wagon because I'm going to be here, you know? So, and in Albany, you know, when the police spoke, everyone listened and they weren't used to people talking back to them, you know? So the wagon came, put us in the wagon, took us to jail.
God.
And we're sitting in the cell, and maybe it was about 30, 40 minutes. A couple of other brothers, they came into the place. Then we saw some students, they arrested students. Mm-hmm. And what had happened with that, Cynthia, was that when people heard about it, went on the radio that, you know, the brothers got arrested, mm-hmm. But people start going to polling places with signs, don't sell your $5, don't sell your soul for $5. And my understanding by the time evening is that people, every polling place in Albany, people had picket signs, so they couldn't, there were so many people, ministers came out, white, black, students, God bless them, from the university, from St. Rose, they came out with signs saying, don't sell your soul for $5. Mm-hmm. It was electricity, it was, you know, and the brothers, and which united us, all of the brothers who agreed that after they got off of work, that they would picket, when they heard and they got off of work, they put their lunch bucket down, they told their wife, we're going to jail, you know, and they did. And when by the time the cell that I was in, they called it stuff like that. They put me in a cell all by myself, right? Mm-hmm. And they've had the other brothers all in the cell in the group, right? And I don't know, I still can't figure out what the hell they were doing, but it got so crowded that they had to put other people in the cell. So, and then what they did, when our lawyers came, they said, they'll let you go if you do so-and-so, so-and-so. Say, first, we didn't do anything wrong, you know? So we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay. We're going to stay here and just find another jail. And then they dropped that after we said we didn't do anything, so we're not going to, you know, agree to that. Well, when they let us all out, and they had to have a special court for us, because they didn't have a court thing. They had a special court. When I came out, there was like the police station downtown where it was. It had to be a couple thousand people were there. It was incredible, and, you know. So that was the beginning of the brothers. We had eating programs. Peter Jones, who was one of the founders of the brothers, he started out a meal program that where kids could come after school and they could eat at our place at the Brothers.
That
Uh,
sounds a little bit like the Black Panthers.
we started. We started 6 months before the Panthers,
Oh, wow.
and our food program was before that, right?
Okay.
And but I would like to say these kinds of neighborhood groups, like the Brothers Grasshopper neighborhood grassroots group, they were popping out all over the place.
Hmm.
It just wasn't the Brothers wasn't a phenomenon that they were different, but it was a time that had came, and so you could go to Lake Placid where they maybe had 5 blacks in the whole goddamn county, and they had formed a group. You know,
Well, Leon, our time is up.
yeah.
So I look forward to future conversations with you. You've been listening to Leon or watching Leon Van Dyke. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Focus on Albany. If you like this show, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Thanks, Leon. We'll talk again.
Thank you so much.